Karnak 7 was a name that echoed with fear across the stars. No traveler dared to speak of it without a whisper, and no ship had approached it in the last 50 years. It was not just a planet, it was a graveyard of legends. The Galactic Council had marked it as a red zone, a place forbidden to all life. Not because of the environment, which was rich with oxygen and flowing rivers, or the landscape, which was lush with glowing trees and crystal-clear skies, but because of the creature that lived there. The Vorkai. Stories about the Vorkai pass through spacers' taverns like ghost tales. A creature taller than any soldier, faster than any drone, stronger than any known species. It had no master, no weakness, and no reason to kill, yet it did, without mercy. When the Council once tried to study the planet, 5 research ships vanished without a trace. Not a single signal, not a single scream, just silence. And in that silence, the legend grew. But humans had always been strange in the galaxy. Where others saw danger, some humans saw questions that needed answers. Eli Mercer was one of those humans. A young xenobiologist, known for his bold studies and calm nature, Eli had always wondered why fear controlled the galaxy. He had read every file, watched every piece of footage, and interviewed every terrified survivor who had once dared to orbit Karnak 7. But none of it satisfied him. What if it's not just a monster? He would ask. What if it's something else? No one supported him. His sponsors withdrew. His fellow scientists laughed behind his back. His permit to study alien predators was revoked. But Eli didn't care. He sold what little he had left, modified a small research vessel for solo use, and flew into the darkness. For days, the ship cut through the void until the swirling blue and green planet appeared on the screen. Karnak 7. Its beauty was deceptive. Clouds shimmered gold under a soft sun, and the planet's surface glowed with bioluminescent forests. Eli's hands trembled not from fear, but from the excitement of discovering something unknown. He landed his ship near a wide riverbank surrounded by thick jungle. Every sensor screamed warnings. Claw marks were fresh on tree trunks. Small animals avoided the area. Something large had passed through recently. Eli stepped outside, breathing in the strange but fresh air, his boots sinking slightly into the moss-covered ground. He didn't carry any weapons, only a scanner, a recorder, and a backpack full of food and survival tools. If I come as a threat, I'll be treated like one, he whispered to himself. The jungle around him was silent. Too silent. Not even the buzzing of insects could be heard. As he moved deeper, the silence felt heavier, like the planet itself was watching. His heartbeat matched his footsteps. Every broken branch made him pause. Every shadow made him breathe slower. And then, just before sunset, he saw it. Across a wide-open clearing stood the creature from nightmares, the Vorkai. It was massive, at least 3 meters tall, with dark-scaled armor across its body and long blade-like arms hanging at its side. 6 glowing eyes locked onto him instantly, and Eli froze. Every part of his training told him to run, to scream, to fire a flare. But instead, he did something no one else had ever tried. He slowly opened his backpack and pulled out a dried meat ration, holding it out with a shaking hand. "I'm not here to fight you," he said softly, knowing the creature wouldn't understand the words, but might feel the calm in his voice. The Vorkai didn't move. Its head tilted slightly, studying the small human. Seconds passed like hours. And then, it moved one slow step forward. Eli could barely breathe. The creature came closer, each step so silent it seemed unnatural for something its size. Finally, it stopped just a few meters away. Its eyes scanned him, not with hunger, but with curiosity. Slowly, it reached out one long clawed arm and tapped the ration from his hand. The meat fell to the ground, and the Vorkai sniffed it once before lifting it gently with 2 claws and pulling it back. It didn't eat it, not right away. It just stood there, holding the offering, as if unsure of what to make of this strange human. And Eli stood still, not blinking, not moving, as if any sudden motion might break the fragile moment. Then, the Vorkai stepped back and vanished into the jungle as quietly as it had arrived. Eli collapsed to his knees, not from fear, but from the overwhelming realization of what just happened. He had made contact. Not as a hunter, not as prey, but as something new. For the rest of the night, he sat near his ship, eyes wide open, not sleeping, replaying every second in his mind. The galaxy had always called the Vorkai a killer, but what if it wasn't? What if it was something more? And more importantly, what would happen if the galaxy discovered that one human had just shared peace with the most feared creature in the known universe? The next morning on Karnak 7 began with a thick mist that clung to the trees like a ghost, wrapping the jungle in silence and mystery, as if the planet itself was holding its breath. Eli Mercer stepped out of his small research ship with slow and careful movements, every part of his body still remembering the night before how close he had stood to the legendary Vorkai, how those glowing eyes had studied him, and how the beast had accepted the food without killing him. The memory didn't fade. It grew stronger with every step he took into the forest. His mind kept asking the same question: why didn't it attack? The creature could have ended him in a heartbeat, yet it didn't. It took the food and walked away. That moment had shattered everything the galaxy believed about the Vorkai, and now Eli was determined to go deeper, to find the truth hidden under layers of fear and myth. With a backpack of supplies, a tracker drone hovering silently behind him, and a light scanner in hand, he followed the same path through the jungle where the Vorkai had disappeared. The jungle floor was damp and scattered with huge roots and glowing plants, and though the place was beautiful, it felt like every branch and shadow watched him. He knew the creature was near. He could feel it. There were marks again, fresh ones on tree trunks, huge claw patterns carved into bark, showing that something powerful had passed through only hours ago. His breath slowed as he knelt near a wide patch of dirt and found tracks deep, heavy, and spaced far apart. The Vorkai had been walking upright, its movement deliberate, almost thoughtful. Eli's fingers brushed over the prints. He didn't feel fear anymore, just a strange connection, like this wasn't just a mission, it was something more, something personal. He walked for hours, deeper into the jungle than anyone had ever dared, and then he heard it, the soft, low growl that echoed like thunder through the trees. He froze. It wasn't a sound of anger, it was a warning. Slowly, he turned, and there it was, Nerex, as Eli had decided to name the creature in his mind, standing atop a boulder with the sun behind it, casting a long shadow across the forest floor. Its body was covered in dark armor like scales, smooth yet terrifying, and its 6 glowing eyes locked onto him with an intensity that made time feel like it had stopped. Eli didn't move. He didn't raise a scanner or speak. He simply sat down on the ground, cross-legged, and lowered his eyes, not in fear, but in peace, trying to show the creature that he meant no harm. Minutes passed like hours. The jungle was silent, and the two of them just existed in that stillness, one human and one legend, facing each other without a single word. And then, to Eli's amazement, the Vorkai stepped down from the boulder and walked forward, not with rage, but with purpose. It moved with a strange grace, its steps quiet, as if it didn't want to scare him. When it stood just a few feet away, it dropped something in front of Eli. A piece of stone shaped, carved, and worn, not by nature but by hands. Eli stared at it. It wasn't just a gift. It was communication. He reached out slowly, picked up the stone, and nodded once, trying to show he understood. The creature tilted its head again, watching his every move with sharp curiosity. Then, with one long claw, it pointed to the stone, then to the ground beneath them. Eli understood. The stone was not just a rock, it was a message about this place, about something hidden here. Perhaps this planet wasn't always forbidden. Maybe something once lived here, intelligent beings, now gone, and the Vorkai was guarding what they left behind. As this thought settled in his mind, a deep sound echoed from behind them, a mechanical buzz that didn't belong to the forest. Eli turned sharply and saw something that made his blood run cold. A council surveillance drone, one of the automatic scouts, hovered above the trees, scanning everything with a red light. The council must have tracked his ship or picked up signals from his landing. If the drone saw the Vorkai and sent images back, they wouldn't believe Eli's peaceful approach. They would see a threat and strike. The Vorkai noticed the drone too. Its body shifted, claws lifting, preparing to defend itself. Eli acted quickly. He stood between the creature and the drone, waving his arms and shouting, trying to distract the machine. The drone's sensors focused on him, flashing brighter. In a panic, Eli pulled a small EMP device from his belt, something meant only for emergencies, and activated it. A pulse of blue light shot out, and the drone dropped like a stone, dead and smoking. The silence returned. The Vorkai stared at him for a long moment, then stepped closer not to attack, but to examine what he had done. It sniffed the drone's remains, then looked back at Eli. Trust. That was what Eli saw in those eyes now. Not full, not complete, but the beginning of something rare. The creature understood that Eli had protected it, just as it had chosen not to harm him before. Slowly, it turned and walked into the forest again, not vanishing, but walking slowly, glancing back as if inviting him to follow. Eli did. He followed it without fear, realizing that this wasn't the end of the encounter, it was the beginning of something no one in the galaxy had ever imagined. A human had made contact not just with a deadly creature, but with a mystery far older and deeper than the legends ever told. And this creature, this so-called predator, was more than a beast. It was a keeper of forgotten truths, and Eli was now part of that story. As Eli Mercer followed the Vorkai deeper into the glowing jungle of Karnak 7, his heart beat with a strange mix of fear, excitement, and something he never expected, hope. The beast, once feared across galaxies, now moved ahead of him, not as a hunter, but as a silent guide. The forest was alive with soft sounds, rustling leaves, the distant call of flying creatures, and the quiet hum of unseen insects, but all Eli could focus on was the powerful figure leading the way. There was a quiet understanding between them now, formed in the shadow of danger, sparked by the destroyed drone and sealed by the stone the creature had gifted him. Every step brought new questions. Who had shaped that stone? Why had the Vorkai saved it? And why had it shared it with a human? As they walked, the trees opened into a wide clearing filled with soft blue light from strange plants growing in circles, almost like a garden. In the center stood a stone pillar covered in symbols that seemed both ancient and beautiful. The Vorkai stopped and sat beside it, then looked at Eli, waiting. Carefully, Eli stepped forward and touched the pillar. The surface was smooth but warm, and as his fingers traced the lines, lights began to glow faintly within the stone. The creature made a soft sound almost like approval and tapped one of the symbols with its claw. Eli realized it was showing him something important. He watched closely and began to understand this was a memory stone, a device used by ancient species to record their knowledge, not with voice or sound, but with light, feeling, and thought. The stone responded to touch and intention. When Eli placed his hand on it again and focused, images bloomed in his mind, visions of tall, strange beings walking side by side with Vorkai, not as enemies, but as allies. They built cities, shared knowledge, and lived in peace until something terrible came: machines with no soul, fire that burned the skies, and war that turned paradise into dust. The Vorkai had not been born killers. They had been protectors. When the war ended and the others were gone, they stayed behind, guarding the ruins, keeping the memory alive. Eli pulled his hand back, eyes wide with shock. Everything the galaxy believed about the Vorkai was wrong. They were not monsters. They were survivors, guardians of a lost age. The creature beside him, whom he now called Nyrex, had trusted him with this truth. That trust was something Eli knew he could never break. He sat beside the Vorkai, close enough to feel the heat from its body, and for the first time, he reached out not with a scanner or a weapon, but with his hand. There was a long pause, then Nyrex slowly extended its clawed hand and gently touched his fingers. The contact was light, but the moment was powerful. It was more than peace. It was the beginning of a bond no one had believed possible. Over the next few days, Eli stayed in the jungle, learning from Nyrex. They didn't speak, but they didn't need to. The creature showed him how to read the symbols, how to listen to the jungle, how to feel the heartbeat of the planet. In return, Eli taught Nyrex about humans, about their journey across the stars, their mistakes, and their hope for a better future. Slowly, Nerex began to understand that not all humans were destroyers. And Eli understood that not all legends were lies. But peace is a fragile thing, and even the strongest bond can be tested by fear. One morning, Eli woke to the sound of engines overhead. Council ships had arrived. Somehow, despite the downed drone, they had traced the signal back to him. Through the trees, he saw the dark shape of a landing craft touching down, and soldiers in silver armor stepping out, weapons ready, creature's muscles tensed, ready to fight, but Eli placed both hands on its chest and shook his head. "Please," he whispered. "Let me try." Nyrex paused, then nodded slowly, stepping back into the shadows. Eli walked into the clearing, hands raised, heart pounding. The soldiers aimed at him instantly. The commander, a hard-faced woman with cold eyes, stepped forward and demanded to know where the creature was. Eli tried to explain about the memory stone, the ancient past, the truth behind the Vorkai, but she didn't listen. She called it madness, claimed he had been tricked, and ordered the team to prepare for extermination. That's when Nyrex stepped out, not to attack, but to stand beside Eli. The soldiers froze. Their weapons trembled in their hands. They had never seen a Vorkai so close, let alone one that didn't strike. Nyrex made no move toward them. It simply looked at Eli, then at the soldiers above the misty treetops of Karnak 7. Something dark and unnatural broke through the clouds, sleek black ships shaped like knives, silent and deadly, their hulls shimmering with energy fields. They didn't roar or announce their presence, but Eli Mercer saw them through the cracks in the jungle canopy, and his heart stopped. The council had sent warships. His worst fear had come true. The destroyed scout drone must have sent partial data before it went down, enough to alert them that something strange, possibly dangerous, was happening on the forbidden planet. They didn't wait for an explanation. They came to kill. Hidden deep in the forest, Eli crouched beside Nyrex, the great Vorkai, who now stood still like a living statue, its 6 glowing eyes turned toward the sky, as if it too could feel the approaching death. The air grew colder, the wind sharper. The trees began to hum as energy fields brushed against their tops. Eli whispered softly, knowing the creature would understand, "They're coming for you." But the Vorkai didn't move, didn't growl, it only watched. The silence between them was heavy with meaning. They both knew the council wouldn't listen. They wouldn't accept that this predator had shown mercy or intelligence. They wouldn't believe a human had formed a bond with it. To them, the Vorkai was still a monster, and Eli was just another fool who had gone too far. As the shadow of the warships darkened the forest floor, Nyrex began to walk not away, not to hide, but toward the source of danger. Eli followed, his heart racing, because even though he was terrified, he knew he couldn't leave the creature alone. They moved together through the thick jungle, passing ancient stones carved with forgotten symbols and giant trees that had stood for centuries, guardians of a planet no one understood. And then the first explosion came. A sharp blast ripped through the air, shaking the ground. A plasma missile struck a clearing less than a mile away, scorching trees and throwing smoke into the sky. The council was not sending a message. They were launching a war. Fire lit the edges of the forest, and the sound of machines followed drones, walkers, soldiers in mechanized suits moving through the jungle with scanners and weapons, all programmed to seek and destroy. Eli pulled out a small comm device, desperately trying to reach the fleet, but static filled the air. The planet's electromagnetic storms blocked all outgoing signals. They were cut off. The jungle was now a battlefield. Nyrex moved faster, using paths no human would ever see, guiding Eli with strange certainty, as if it knew where safety could be found. As they ran, Eli asked himself how this could end. The council would not stop until the Vorkai was dead. They wouldn't stop until everything on this planet was turned to ash. And yet, in the middle of this chaos, Nyrex was calm. The creature led him into a narrow cave hidden beneath the roots of a massive glowing tree, and there, far below the surface, Eli saw something that changed everything. The cave opened into a chamber filled with carvings, old technology, and holographic symbols that lit up as they entered. It was an ancient base human-like in design, but older, stranger. Perhaps not built by humans, but by a race long lost to time. And at the center was a stasis pod, broken open, covered in claw marks, the same marks that matched Nyrex's claws. Eli understood in a single chilling moment. The Vorkai wasn't just a predator, it was a guardian. It had been protecting this place, perhaps for generations. And now, the Council was about to destroy it all. He turned to Nyrex and whispered, "We can't let them erase this." The creature looked back at him, and for the first time, Eli saw something more than intelligence. He saw sorrow. Maybe the Vorkai had lost others like it. Maybe it had watched the Council destroy, had now become unbreakable. They returned to the surface as the jungle burned. Soldiers had landed, and fire spread across the horizon. Eli and Nyrex moved like shadows through the smoke, using the terrain to their advantage. The Council troops were advanced, but they didn't understand the forest. They didn't know how it breathed or where it hid its secrets. One by one, their scanners failed. Their drones lost signals. Their soldiers panicked. And then, for the first time in history, the galaxy witnessed what happened when a human and a Vorkai fought side by side. Eli used tech, tools, and traps, while Nyrex used speed, strength, and instinct. They didn't attack to kill. They fought to protect. They forced the enemy back, targeting equipment and communications, cutting them off, leaving them confused and blind. The soldiers thought they were being hunted by a ghost. None of them knew that it was something greater, a bond, born from fear, grown in understanding, now forged in battle. But the Council wasn't giving up. A final ship descended, larger than the others, preparing to fire a weapon that would erase the entire jungle. Eli saw it coming, its energy core glowing, building up for a massive strike. He looked at Nyrex. There was only one chance. They had to destroy the ship from inside. Without a word, they ran together toward the rising death. The final battle had begun, and the galaxy had no idea what it was about to witness. The jungle was silent now, but not in fear and peace. Smoke still curled in the distant sky, but the fires had died out and the warships were gone. The Council's forces had been driven back, not with greater weapons, but with something they could never understand: trust. Eli Mercer stood on a ridge above the valley where so much had changed. The wind carried the scent of wet earth and glowing flowers, and nearby, Nyrex, the last of the Vorkai guardians, stood watching the horizon. Their bodies were marked with wounds, scars of the battle that almost destroyed everything, but their spirits held something stronger: hope. After the great fight, reports spread across systems, not just of a deadly predator, but of a human who fought beside it. Survivors from the Council's army told stories that didn't match the official report. They spoke of a beast that showed mercy, a creature that protected rather than attacked. Most people didn't believe it at first. Some said it was lies, others said it was madness. But then the Council sent another probe. Not a warship, not a scout drone, but a vessel carrying scientists and historians. They came to see the truth, and what they found changed everything. Beneath the jungles of Karnak 7, inside the ancient ruins guarded by Nyrex, were artifacts older than any known civilization, technology that didn't match human or alien design. The Vorkai had not been hunters. They were watchers, protectors of something sacred. Eli had unlocked a mystery no one even knew existed. But more than that, he had changed the way people thought. He proved that fear could be challenged with understanding, that enemies could become allies, that the deadliest predator in the galaxy could be more than a monster. And now, standing on that ridge, he knew this was not the end, it was a new beginning. A team had arrived to study the planet, but under strict rules. No weapons, no soldiers, only knowledge. Eli had refused any medal, any reward. He only asked that Nyrex be left in peace and that the forest be protected. The Council agreed, though with hesitation. They had learned the hard way that not everything could be controlled by force. As days passed, the jungle began to heal. New plants grew where fire had burned. Animals returned. And people, slowly and carefully, came to learn. Some of the scientists were afraid at first. They stayed close to the base, avoiding the deeper forest. But Nyrex never attacked. It only watched. And slowly, it earned their trust. Eli taught them how to read the signs of the jungle, how to move without disturbing the balance. He showed them the paths the Vorkai used and how the ruins reacted to sound, to thought, to energy. The planet wasn't just a mystery, it was alive. And then, one night, under the glowing blue moons of Karnak 7, Nyrex disappeared. Eli searched, calling its name through the trees, listening for the soft thud of its steps, the growl that had once made his blood run cold but now filled him with calm. But it didn't return. For days he waited, worried, but then he understood. The creature had done its duty. It had kept the secret safe, passed the test of time, and now it had gone back into the jungle, where it belonged. Eli never saw it again, but he felt its presence in every shadow, in every breeze that passed through the trees. The bond they shared didn't need words. It didn't need to be seen to be real. It had changed him. And maybe, through him, it had changed others too. Years passed, and Karnak 7 became a place of learning, of respect. Children studied the symbols in the ruins, artists painted the glowing plants, explorers walked the jungle paths without fear. And in every story told around campfires and classrooms, one name always returned: Eli Mercer, the man who didn't fight to kill, but to understand. The human who faced the galaxy's greatest predator and made it his friend. Some called him foolish. Others called him brave. But all agreed on one thing: because of him, the galaxy would never be the same. This wasn't just a story of survival. It was a story of trust, of change, of something new born from the ashes of fear. A new beginning. One that reminded everyone that sometimes the greatest strength isn't in the weapon you carry, but in the hand you reach out with. And somewhere, deep in the jungle, under the starlit sky, a pair of glowing eyes watched from the shadows, calm, silent, and proud.